Hi, Brendan here, and welcome to Personality Epistemology. So, on this layout, I've centered these two uh, screen caps from a video I recorded a decade ago called Decision Cinema. And I said at the time, if higher power is basically just a bunch of people on Earth, it comes down to like this question of responsibility and what's going to happen. And I believe there's a little bit more to it than just people on Earth, but things happen through people on Earth. I mean, what's happening with history? So, in this interconnected world, which I saw sort of pieces of back then, like 10 years ago, are kind of heating up to a world on fire. And of course, that's a metaphor, but it's like upper right corner here, Michael Wesch, from Knowledgeable to Knowledgeable TED Talk. He says the story starts off with the world on fire. He's talking about an Aztec story, but and then we have Dolly Parton, World on Fire, came out just a few days ago, and Sarah McLachlan, World on Fire, which I was listening to back in 2011, 2012, and so on. So, so that's Decision Cinema. I mean, basically, where to begin? So I'm gonna move these off the screen. I don't know, move this over here. So I have this Robert McKee quote from this video, The Setting, which I highly recommend watching, except he's big on small little worlds, and the world at large of humanity is full of small little worlds that are quite entangled. So he said the setting is the first level of creative limitation. So there's this principle of creative limitation, which I found extremely helpful for real life and making sense of life, navigating life, and being an INTJ personality type with introverted intuition, extroverted thinking, and a pretty developed other functions aside from being able to clean, which is a whole story. Along with ADHD, it's like I need stimulation, like dopamine and so on, and then with the introverted intuition and INTJ thing, it's kind of like the macro. But then I'm also highly interested in helping people, and just in part coordinating survivable circumstances for a set of people that maybe could amount to what people call a chosen family. I mean, that could include a regular family, but it for sure currently includes chosen family or people who are close to me that I care about deeply. But coordinating survivable circumstances for people that I know has proven to be extremely challenging, with a lot of close calls. So, but the setting as the first level of creative limitation, like this gets to Robert Wright's TED Talk and this non-zero concept. So the way the future plays out, it's not just going to be dividing a fixed pie. It's going to be, I mean, according to this way of looking at it, it's going to be either things, and it's not necessarily either or, but it's like things devolve into like weeping and gnashing of teeth, bicker and brawl, misery and meanness and all this stuff, or toward like this article is titled Affective Energy, Authentic Power, Transforming Communities Toward a Phenomenology of Collaboration, along with knowledge at the top of the screen, an epistemology of solidarity, the first part of one dissertation title, and then this article, Transformative Learning to Solve the Impossible, Edge Emotions and Intuition in Expanding the Limitations of Our Rational Abilities. So what that gets to is basically developing intuition and reason or thinking, and having them work in harmony, grounded in reality, including human history and what's going on in the world, and one's lifespan experience and all this stuff, which gets to Ray Dalio's principles for success: embrace reality and deal with it. And then we got this world on fire. So and then in the lower right corner here, I have this born in the theater trope. And then, so it's like The Simpsons. Like, I grew up with, I mean, I didn't watch it that much, but I grew up with The Simpsons as part of cultural reality or whatever. And so, just, I highly recommend this video, Show Within a Show, on Simpsons Theory on YouTube, which is where I got these screen caps. So this whole thing of like self-reflexivity, watching oneself on TV or whatever, or YouTube, and then I have a reference to the movie Network from 1976 with the money speech here. Just like CEO guys giving a Grand Inquisitor speech to Howard Beale, the sort of protagonist. So, I mean, that gets into that whole thing. So, I mean, a lot of people conceptualize power in the world with reference to basically, well, it's been the case at a lot of points in human history, but this, like, for example, this past, like, post-World War II era, characterized by things like Billy Joel's song "We Didn't Start the Fire" sums up. It's kind of like, I consider it like a bubble, epistemic bubble. I don't know. There's just something about how, this is gonna be. I mean, I'm gonna get into like people are gonna be mad at me, but not to judge everyone in a category as the same, because there are differences, but baby boomers grew up generationally in this certain type of experience that's very different from what younger people today are growing up with, that's for sure. And millennials are kind of in between, and I like to label Zennial because I'm kind of in between Gen X and Gen Y in my birth year, 1980, but I also definitely don't identify with Gen X. And I always felt different. Like, people talk about feeling different for different reasons, but I felt different in like all these ways. But one of them is generationally, just, and culturally, like, just the whole thing not making sense. And now it's like all these explanations and so on are available. So now, the past few years and a decade ago, I had a multi-year spurt of figuring this stuff out with like layouts, but and sort of simpler versions earlier on. But now it's like all these pieces are, it's like falling like raindrops. I mean, you could say dominoes, but to use a different metaphor, it's like falling like raindrops. And I think Dolly Parton's song "World on Fire" really exemplifies that, because a lot of people are stuck in thinking about politics, like party politics in the U.S., as that's how things happen. But a huge amount of what goes on in the United States and around the world has to do with the professions and it's like education, school through college, mental health, labels, all these things, and like the legal system and all of that. But school in particular has been way out of date at best for at least since I mean, some people argue since it was created. I mean, with a historical lens on things, school has not been around that long. So, but this whole thing of sitting for 8,000 hours of complying with non-negotiable instruction and assessment in subjects unrelated to real life for the most part, or subjects that it's not that the subjects are not worth knowing about, but the way they're presented, and that just did not work for me. So this gets into this thing of boundary turbulence and paradigm change in education, professions, and politics in 2023 and the 2020s. And I have a reference to the movie Network, where one character asks the director, "For God's sake, Chris, the whole world is watching." And then I have this thing that was on, I don't know, somewhere online I found this. "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil," from the Lord's Prayer. So, I mean, it's this sort of like both and thing. It's like higher powers come down to a bunch of people on Earth, and then all these people now are disavowing responsibility for what's going on. It's like, oh, well, I'm only in charge of this. I'm only in charge of this. I only know about this. I only know about this. And so who's in charge of the whole thing? Well, arguably people in secretive meetings and stuff. But the fact is that it's kind of spread out. And then with the younger generations, I mean, it's time to embrace stepping into power, but not power over, because you're going to end up getting clashing with a lot of people. So that's why there's power with and to and power within and all this stuff. So I don't know, that's a few thoughts. Oh, and then from The Simpsons also, Lisa in the upper left corner here, "I can take care of everything. All you have to do is unshrink me." And I think there's something to be said about that these days. There's all kinds of terrible problems, but they're also solvable, as the Transformative Learning to Solve the Impossible Problems article gets at. Questions and comments welcome. This is a call to adventure. There's lots to learn. More soon.